Hey, Amie,
Yeah, Juan.
give me that beat.
It's Baseball Shangri-La with Amie Cuevas and Juan Ramirez.
What's up, party people? She is Amie Cuevas. I am Juan Ramirez. You are listening or watching Baseball Shangri-La. If you are listening to us on the audio portion of the show, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Rate us, write us a review. Help spread the word about the show. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button. Give us a thumbs up. Leave us your comments. We love engaging with you. And most importantly, make sure you're following us on social media on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Bluesky at Baseball Shangri-La. Amie, ¿cómo estás?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I haven't seen you in like 5 years, even though we just had a field trip.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we're going to get into it. We did not drop an episode last week, and we're going to explain to you why we didn't drop an episode last
That's
week.
the first time we haven't had a consecutive episode every week since we started last year.
That's right. And because we are independent, we make our own schedules and we can make that executive decision. But there is a great reason why we did not record, and we're going to get into that later on in the show. Before we start talking some baseball, Amie, is there anything from the comments corner that you want to go ahead and address?
I mean, it is like 2 weeks old. It was a lot of people kind of agreeing with what was going on with the show. Vince Scully bobbleheads and people being worried about the schedule coming up. We did hear from Roland, and it was confirmed. His kids are cringing every time we bring him up. So sorry, kids. But I know that it warms the cold black dark heart that Juan has.
Shout out to Roland's kids. Hi, Roland's kids.
Oh my god. I knew when I passed.
Make sure you give your dad a hug today and tell him how much you love him.
I knew when I passed on that message that you would be grinning for some reason.
You go ahead and you do that.
I do want to say I did get to see you in person before we took our hiatus because I was graced with getting to go to Juan's Frida Theater.
That is right, ladies and gentlemen. We, as for you loyal listeners on this show, you all know that we love movies on this show and we love all kinds of movies. I know I've been accused of being a movie snob. Amie has a love for B movies. And let me tell you something. My theater of choice that I go to is the wonderful, fantastic the Frida Cinema that shows all kinds of movies. They show classics, they show new releases, they show B movies there, they show everything. And I invited Amie to my second home. I invited her to come and partake as we enjoyed the 50th anniversary of one of the greatest motion pictures of all time.
And the basis of our friendship.
That's right, the basis of our friendship. The Steven Spielberg classic Jaws, ladies and gentlemen. We watched Jaws on the big screen, and it was a sold out screening. And it's the 50th anniversary, and that movie was fantastic. Amie, what did you think of my Frida Cinema?
It was amazing. I can't wait to go back. And I know that they're doing a screening of Dogma soon. So
that's correct. It's this weekend actually coming up.
Yeah.
It is the 25th anniversary of Kevin Smith's Dogma.
I cannot believe it's 25th as far as anniversaries go. My goodness.
And I will tell you this, I am friendly with the programmer at the Frida Cinema. And what cracked me up was it just happened to be happenstance because it is the 25th anniversary of Dogma. But there's a lot of people who write him and say, why don't you show Kevin Smith movies at the Frida? Like they were giving him a hard time of not showing enough Kevin Smith movies. So there you go. They're showing Dogma. But thank you for coming to my hood and partaking in my joy.
I was a little dismayed that I was the only one in a Jaws shirt in our group. I mean, Wendy gets a pass, but really?
I will say this. I do have a Jaws shirt, but because I'm a fat boy in a little suit, that shirt no longer fits me. So I need to go.
We could safety pin it to the front of another shirt.
Yeah, I have to go to the Fat and Short store and see if I can get a new Jaws shirt.
Okay.
Or as someone had said, or you could just lose weight, Juan. You could do that. I was like, I could, but going to fat and short, I
You
think
just need to be comfortable. So I'm sensing a birthday gift in your future.
so. Thank you for coming. I mean, I had a fantastic weekend, Memorial Day weekend at the Frida. I was there 3 days over Memorial Day weekend. I saw Jaws. I saw the French film Jacques Tati's Playtime. And then I ended my Frida cinema run with Akira Kurosawa's classic, which I had never seen on the big screen ever. It was the first time I saw it, Ron, which is in its 40th anniversary. So there's a lot of anniversaries screenings. So I love that theater. Thank you for coming out, Amie, and it was fun hanging out with you.
It was so much fun. I don't get to see you as often in person because we don't see each other at the stadium as frequently as we used to. So it was, yeah, little
Good times.
reunion tour in person.
Good times. So let's talk some baseball, ladies and gentlemen, and a pleasant good evening to you wherever you may be. Amie, let's start with updates because I know we have a lot of them.
We're gonna probably have to tag team this because as we're gonna talk about later, I have been in and out of town for the last week. So I have some of the stuff. You can fill in the gaps. Ultimately we've got a lot of moves that the Dodgers have been making. But like first and foremost, Ohtani, who I'm sure everybody is super excited about, he has been facing batters. So he faced batters for the first time on Saturday, May 24th. That was his first time since surgery. And then he faced them a second time this past Saturday. So he threw 29 pitches. So he has been progressing for everybody who wants to see him pitch, which has also been creating a lot of conversations, at least in the circles that I've been running with, of do you keep him as just an offensive player, or do you what they signed him for have him be, the dual purpose player that he is going to be. So it'll be interesting to see how those
Can I
conversations
stop you right
progress.
there?
Mhm.
Because yes, A Rod brought that up on the pregame show on Saturday, and I know you were traveling, so you didn't get to see that when it was on Fox this past weekend.
I
So
rewatched it, but I wasn't
okay.
listening to their commentary.
So this was pregame. They brought up this conversation, and of course, A Rod had said he would not risk pitching Shohei. Look, the Dodgers are very conservative. As I had said all along, I don't expect Shohei to pitch until after the All-Star game. But what is really interesting to me right now is this. And you correct me if I'm wrong because you're there and I know you talked to Dave this weekend, but it seems like Shohei right now they're not holding him back in these sessions, these bullpen sessions that they're calling them. I know he threw live BP this past weekend. He is throwing his full array of pitches. And everybody who has seen these, and I get it also, I make sure, big disclaimer, everybody's listening here. I get it. This is him pitching batting practice. This is him pitching bullpen. So when they sit there and say he looks good, I totally understand. It's very different than pitching in a game. But the question that was posed to me, and I'm going to pose it to you, Amie, is if they're not holding him back right now and he is going full throttle and you can't send him on a rehab assignment because he's playing games. So instead of doing these bullpen and pitching to live batting, to live hitters in batting practice, why not throw him in a game and see whether this is going to work? Because this is where A-Rod, I think, has a point. If he injures himself, which again, you cannot prevent injury. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. He could very easily hurt himself in one of these bullpen sessions or in this batting practice session. If he hurts himself and it's a point where he hurts himself bad enough where you lose him as a hitter, is that something the Dodgers could overcome?
Well, and that's really the conversation so we're going to get to it later. I don't want to keep alluding to it like it's a secret. I was in Cooperstown last week for the Cooperstown Symposium. So I was around a whole bunch of baseball heads. And that's why this was such a topic of conversation, because Shohei transcends just the Dodgers. He is beloved across baseball, beloved or hated, depending on where you fall. But that was the argument from a lot of people, especially who are not necessarily Dodgers fans, is like, why would you risk that when offensively he is such a big game piece for them? And while the Dodgers do need pitching, is it worth the gamble? And I understand, I guess, what was being said in the pregame, but at the same time, if you're throwing him into a game, if he's throwing 29 pitches, he's not also doing up downs. He's not batting in the midst of that. So I don't know that you want to necessarily stress him out when they are trying to slowly and stealthily gauge him as they go through, or not stealthily, strategically gauge him. So yes, I guess that would be beneficial at some point to throw him into a game setting. But if right now you're just trying to gauge where he's at, I don't know that you'd want to put all of that stress on him in a real-time game while he's batting up, down, when they're just trying to get a feel for his arm post-surgery. This is only the second time he's thrown since his surgery a couple years ago. So I think they're just going to be a lot more cautious with him.
To follow up on your stressor comment, could this be used as an argument to put him in real games? Because if he does do that and he comes out of it and he's like, you know what, this is really, it's too much. It's messing with my hitting for right now. And maybe the Dodgers, based on that, put a kibosh on it and go, all right, then you're just focusing. You're just going to be a DH for the rest of the season then, until we can find another way, or have you completely, maybe Shohei goes, you know what, maybe next year at the beginning of the year, to start the year so I can establish my routines, it would be better than all of a sudden I'm in the middle of a season and I have to change my routines. And as a result of changing these routines, it's now messing up with my swing. I am now out of whack. I totally understand the argument of the risk is too much.
But look, they do need to answer your question though. They need to build him up first. They can't just gauge him in the middle. I mean, they can do whatever they want, but like, to gauge him in the middle of the game right now while they're building him up, they're doing what they would do to any pitcher from like a spring training perspective. He got pushed back because of the surgery, because of other stuff going on. So he didn't get a normal ramp up like a pitcher would, where he would be ready to go. So, and then now you throw in that he's not going to go on a rehab assignment because he has basically a full-time job already. At this point, they're still gauging him. So while I understand some people think that would be a great way to test him out, I think it's too soon to even do that yet. He literally has thrown twice to batters.
That's interesting that you say that, because I ran into a listener, and he just started listening. He's new. Timoteo at Taqueria Los Grandes asked me, he was just like, in regards to Dave Roberts saying exactly what you just said, that they want to build him up. Timoteo says to me, Juan, why? The majority of the Dodger starters don't even go 5 innings. So why do you need to build Shohei up? If Shohei can only give you 4, it's not anything new. This Dodger team is accustomed to it. It's the way the bullpen is the way it is, because you're not getting length out of your starters.
But he only threw 29 pitches. That's not the 4 or 5 innings anybody's. And I'm not arguing with anybody, but he threw 29 pitches to batters. Like, sometimes that is an inning if it's a really stressful inning. So he's not even at the point yet where you could say like he can go 4 to 5 innings, even if we throw him in early.
I do think the Dodgers are in uncharted territory in this regard, because of the fact that he can't go on a rehab assignment. He can't do what Kershaw did.
They're in uncharted territory with him no matter what, whether he pitches, whether he doesn't pitch, because there is no other player like him right now. So this is uncharted territory, essentially, even for the MLB.
So I'm just very curious as to how you build someone up when really the only way you can with him is by doing bullpens and by having him pitch live batting practice, because you can't put him in a game situation because you need him in your offense. And I guess maybe if we keep coming to the same conclusion that you need him more offensively than you need him pitching wise, I guess that's the answer. And it's like, why are we even having this discussion where everything clearly states the risk of him pitching is a greater harm to us than just letting him DH for the rest of the season.
Yes, but I would say some of these conversations are premature because it feels like not saying that that's what you're saying, but it feels like an all or nothing. Like, well, if we can't throw him in games now, let's just leave him as a hitter, and that's not it. They are ramping him up. He has literally thrown twice. The last time was 29 pitches. If they continue to ramp him up, because they are taking this day by day, they're taking this every single, I don't want to say outing because he's not in a game, right? But every time that he gets this opportunity to do it, they're going to ramp him up a little bit more. They're also gauging what that does do to him in games. So it's not to say that we might not see him pitch or they might see the value as they continue to ramp him up, but it's definitely premature to say, well, it's either this or it's that, because he's literally only thrown to live batters twice. So I think we're going to see the progression, and I hope nobody's shocked if they do say, you know what, we are just going to leave him as a DH. Even like to your point, maybe for the rest of this year, we'll revisit this next year. Or, maybe they continue to build him up. They don't see that it's causing an issue or it's not enough of an issue to not risk it. And then you do see him pitch and continue to DH. But right now, it's just premature to even make any of those decisions. We need to wait and see as he continues to progress.
I agree with you in the sense that it is premature. I also think what is not helping is the amount of coverage that these bullpen sessions, that these live batting practices are getting from beat writers, from anybody covering the team. I don't know if you saw the pictures when they were in New York playing the Metropolitans on the day he was going to throw. I think he was scheduled to throw either it was maybe just a straight bullpen session or maybe to live batters. And there was a huge line of media to get credentialed because Shohei specifically was doing this. So his bullpen.
But we're also responsible for our own reactions and our own perspectives. So even if this is available on social media, that doesn't give everybody free reign to just like the sky is falling or Chicken Little. You're like, we're all responsible for our emotions and regulations. So even if it's out there, like that's where I don't get it. Like, okay, so the information's there. So what?
Right. But this falls on the Dodgers, right, in terms of controlling the narrative, because
why they're putting the information out there, if people run with it one way or the other, that's on people.
No, but there is a narrative being established that, hey, he looks great. He looks good. Why is he not pitching?
He looks good for 29 pitches.
Well, but then Dave Roberts is getting asked those questions of the sense, I don't know. And that's my thing where it's uncharted territory here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's going to throw more than 29 pitches, because if all you're doing is pitching either a simulated game or you're doing live batting practice, they're not going to let you throw more than 30 pitches.
Well, but that's the thing. But that's the thing we don't know, is that the next time he could be throwing 35, he could be throwing 40. That's the thing. Like, they are going to ramp him up. It's not like, well, you just keep throwing 29 and hopefully you get better at all your pitches. That's part of the ramp up. But the other part of that, and what I mean is we're responsible for regulating our own emotions, is so what if he looks good with those 29 pitches? That is one, it's a perspective, because 90% of us could think he looks good. Dave Roberts could corroborate it, and 10% of people could still think he looks like crap. It's all perspective. We have information. We all choose how we look at it. And then at the end of the day, the Dodgers are still going to be the ones who decide it. So even if people are like, he looks great, put him in the game, and the Dodgers decide not to, what are you going to do about it? Nothing.
Not a damn thing.
So just like enjoy that. And that's a come back to just enjoy the game. Enjoy what we have. If he pitches, great. If he doesn't, it's great conversation. And I think they're fun discussions to have. But when I do see some people start taking them very seriously and getting upset about it, that's where I'm just like, whoa, like, I love this sport too, but like, he may or may not pitch. We're gonna wait and see.
What other updates do you have?
So that our one tangent as we kicked off.
We got segued there.
So let's see here. There were a lot of transactions. The biggest ones that I saw recently were, so Noah Davis was activated this weekend. Luis Garcia was put on the IL for his adductor. So he injured it covering first base when he was playing against the Guardians. Dave Roberts did say that Kirby Yates would be doing a bullpen in the next day or so. So we might even see by next weekend, he could be doing a sim game next week and probably no rehab start, but we might see him soon. And then Kopech will probably be the first domino to fall when it comes to returns. And then, as we all know, Mookie Betts fractured his toe last Wednesday. And the big news in the clubhouse yesterday was the fact that it was the first day he was going to be putting on a shoe. So Dave Roberts did verify that he might be, or he commented saying that he might take some grounders on his knees because, again, first day wearing a shoe. But the media scramble to get some of that information from Mookie was it was kind of a big deal because we hadn't really heard from him since that happened. He did say he confirmed he was going to the bathroom, and like anyone else, he stubbed it. So as he was getting more and more questions kind of along the same line, he just said, whatever you picture getting out of bed and stubbing your toe, we've all done it. He just happened to fracture his. And he confirmed it's the one on his left foot next to his pinky toe. But a lot of different questions came out of that. Like he said, he's not frustrated. You got to take the good with the bad. He doesn't consider it an obstacle. It's just whatever. But he did get asked if he would be pinch hitting in the series against the Yankees, and he confirmed he would not be because he could not even put on a shoe till yesterday. So just some interesting takeaways there.
I went to the CIF final on Saturday, and high school softball final on Saturday, and the woman behind me had some very strong opinions on this Mookie Betts fractured toe thing.
Okay.
She was having a conversation and could care less who could hear her conversation. It was one
Gotta
of
love
those
it.
where everyone was going to hear her opinions. She did not understand how he could fracture it unless he was running.
Has she never bumped her toe?
At
Wow.
this point, I refused to engage. I was just listening.
Smart.
She then said that he needs to be in a permanent walking boot all the time. These guys need to be in bubble wrap. And I'm assuming she was a Dodger fan because she seemed to know a lot about the injuries going on and all that stuff. But she had some very strong opinions on the fragility of the players in this Dodgers lineup. So I did not want to turn around. I just, in my mind, I had an image of what she looked like, and I did not want that image to be changed. So I didn't want to turn around. I just listened like I was on the radio.
I mean, it happens to other players too on other teams. Again, I think that comes back to your argument that you constantly bring up that we have gotten very, very regional. And so we don't realize that this happens to other people. But I mean, I've heard some conspiracy theories surrounding the whole thing. He squashed all of those. Like he literally he fractured his toe. He'll be back soon. He's hoping once he gets walking
You mean
around.
He didn't drop a bowling ball on his leg, Amy?
Oh, I heard worse stuff than that. And it was just like, hold on, I'm sorry, I didn't pack my tinfoil hat. So, and Bill Plunkett posted today, Betts was out running, testing his toe out. So if you guys are on social media, you'll see there's video out there of that. But the other big one was that Evan Phillips is having Tommy John surgery. So his season is over. He tried to play catch a few days before the announcement was made, and it didn't go well. So thank you for your service, Evan Phillips. We know that he was not the same pitcher towards the end of last season that we had become accustomed to. And so as we're seeing this, if this was kind of the lead in, I hope he has a speedy recovery.
Yeah, you kind of had to figure something was up when they initially had said it was precautionary, and then it just seemed like he had been gone for a while and there were no updates on him. So when they finally dropped the hammer on the update, I can't say that I was surprised. Does suck for him. I don't know in terms of his contract how many years he has left. But God, that really sucks to have Tommy John, and you got to think now if he comes back next year, it's going to be towards the end of the year. But
he was walking around on the clubhouse yesterday though, so I did see him in there. So.
All right, what else you got update wise?
Let's see. I mean, that was more of the kind of the big stuff. Tyler Glasnow got moved from the 15-day IL to the 60-day with the right shoulder inflammation. I know that there was kind of a kerfuffle on social media about that, but from everything that I read, it's, you know, it's kind of in line with when they thought he would be back anyway. So it's, you know, just making the moves that they need to make. Outside of Noah Davis, they did send Emmett Sheehan on a rehab assignment to Oklahoma City. They recalled Ryan Lutos today, optioned Noah Davis, and then they traded for a right-handed pitcher with the Mariners. So Will Klein for left-handed pitcher Joe Jocks. And then they designated Chris Stratton for assignment, who had a brief showcase this weekend and is now gone, or at least DFA'd. So maybe not gone, but
the musical chairs on relievers. You know, what are you gonna do? I mean,
this is the new MLB, and it's definitely the new for the Dodgers at this point.
Yeah, when you well, I don't know if it's the new or if it's more the norm now with the Dodgers. When you lead the league in bullpen innings, you got to reload, and this is how you do it. This is how you get creative. But it is that it for updates?
Yeah, what do you have to fill in the gaps?
No, you got all the ones I wanted to touch on. So let's talk some baseball. Let's talk about the Yankees of Nueva York coming into town and the Dodgers winning 2 out of 3. And I'm going to say this, Amy, in the interest of full disclosure, because I'm not one of those people that I'm not going to take credit. I really, and I told my compadre, who's a Yankee fan, and he can vouch for me, I was expecting that things were going to go really rough for the Dodgers.
You went into it with expectations?
Yeah, because I'll tell you.
Why do you do this to yourself?
The Yankees were playing really well going into the series. I was a little concerned about the pitching matchups. I really thought that the only game they really had a shot in was the game they ended up losing on Sunday with Yamamoto, because I was really scared about Gonsolin facing that Yankees lineup and Landon Knack facing that Yankees lineup. And at the beginning of that game on Friday night, I was sitting there going, yeah, this is pretty much what I expected. You know, there is something I want to tip my hat to Tony Gonsolin, and I don't know why I'm always surprised by this, because this is who Tony Gonsolin is. Tony Gonsolin makes a lot of pitches. There's a lot of traffic on the base pads. Every game just seems like it's teetering on disaster. He ended up getting the win on Friday after they were down 5-2. So
this is why you just enjoy it an inning at a time. One of these days, I am determined to win you over and just have you watch baseball in a present mindset.
I am pleasantly surprised that they took 2 out of 3. I'm really, really happy about it.
I will say this.
Yes.
So I was on the East Coast. I was in Albany, New York while this was all taking place. And I have a newfound, I mean, I knew it was bad over there, but I have a newfound appreciation for how late these game times start. It was a 10:10 game time start on Friday. And I had scored I had like an apple cider with me in my room, and I had the game up on my laptop and my scorecard out, and I was just like, it is 10:10 and I have to be up really early in the morning. And we saw what happened. It was like batting practice off of Tony Gonsolin initially, and then the game kind of balanced out, but it was just like, good grief, that game went late.
Did you watch the whole thing, or did you tap out?
So at the 7th inning, because I had to leave early in the morning for my flight, I didn't tap out. I just switched to the radio and listened to it while I was falling asleep, because it was after midnight at that point. But I was getting texts from my friends who were at the game. So Philip and Jessica were like, go to sleep. And I was like, but the game.
So one of our listeners, Joe Houses, is from the West Coast. Moved to, I believe it was South Carolina for a teaching job. And he echoed everything that you just said. When he first moved to South Carolina, and he was just like, I understand why there is an East Coast bias. Nobody can watch these games when every game is starting at 10 o'clock.
It was awful. And I don't drink sugary drinks. I was like, I'm going to stay awake. And
Look, as I said, I tip my hat.
Oh, did you just say look?
Yeah, drank. Federico Freeman just continues to torment the Yankees. Like Federico had himself a series, and look, I remember another drink.
Oh my gosh.
For those of you who, again, and you probably won't say your names and won't admit it, but all those people that wanted Max Muncy DFA'd, get him out of here. After this weekend, are you changing your tune? Does it look like Max Muncy is back? Does it look like Max Muncy is back to being the streaky player that he is? And look,
You mean a
Drank.
baseball player. Let's be clear. He's a baseball player because, you know. We've got one Max Hedgerming.
I think it was
we have
fair.
A Max Hedgerming a little bit. Hold on. Come back to us, Juan. Okay. There we go. Go.
Let me know when I'm good. Okay.
I mean, I can hear you, but
Then
you're a little pixelated. Okay, so I'll fill in the gaps real quick while you come back to us. Muncy did hit his 200th and 201st home run, and so this was something that I did hear a lot about. Oh my gosh, he found his swing, he's back. And I had this conversation in the press box yesterday with somebody. It might have been Eric Steven about how quickly we forget the short memories people have, because they said the same thing about Andy Pajes, and now everybody is on the Andy Pajes train, and people wanted him gone. And so it's just, I don't mind. I want them to celebrate Andy Pajes, celebrate Max Muncy. I wish that would also go towards giving them grace instead of knocking them down when it comes to some of these like downturns, because this is literally baseball and this happens to everybody. So maybe we just take that and we support those guys while they're going through it, knowing that they'll get to the other side, just like we're seeing with the resurgence with Max Muncy right now. I think he's back to his 1-to-1 like walk, strikeout on base rate, whatever the 1-to-1 that he usually does. You are back. Juan, what wisdom do you have to drop on us?
I will just, in fairness to the people who were critical of Max Muncy and comparing to the reaction that Andy Pajes' struggles were less than a month. Max Muncy's were 2 months. So I think it was fair to bring up legitimate concerns with Max Muncy's performance, in the sense of, is he ever going to figure it out this year? Because you do look, we're getting to the point, we are 2 months into the season, where you as an organization need to start addressing where you have holes and how you're going to address those holes.
Yes.
In the outfield, you have, in one particular spot, you have some productivity issues. You also had it at third base. If this really is Max Muncy is breaking out of it, this is great, because it addresses one of the holes that you have identified.
It is, but if you listen to the broadcast, I believe it was yesterday, or just just know about baseball in general, you're not typically going to have all 9 hitters all hitting at the same time. That's like saying, well, we're going to win 162 games this year also. That's not going to happen. This is where the Dodgers are spoiled. This is where there's a little bit more privilege involved in this lineup. And yes, we have come to expect it, but not every team is going to have everybody hitting at the same time. And some teams have to deal with this just normally. Like if maybe you have one stellar player on your team and they carry the other. I mean, Trout has done this for years. There are other good players on the Angels, but you have one player that you look to. The Dodgers have many. And while Max Muncy might have been struggling, he seems to be turning that around. You've got some teams that aren't even still in double digits. And by some teams, I mean one, but we're still waiting patiently for the Rockies to hit that double-digit game. That was something we were all looking at all week long of like, are they going to do it today? Is it going to be the day where they get their 10th win? And, I think that's where the Dodgers are a little bit more spoiled in that sense of like, yes, it would be nice. I'm sure Max Muncy would love to be hitting at the capacity that he knows he could be at, but let's be realistic too.
Shouts out to the Colorado Rockies for taking that shrapnel. You got to keep your eyes open at all times, because you never know when it's coming.
Well, no, we were waiting to celebrate them. Like this just shows when you don't, whether it's ownership, whether it's leadership, those guys are all professional baseball players. You know that they are not slacking on the field. So I'm not trying to throw shrapnel their way. It's if they could be winning, I'm sure they would love to be doing that. So it just is endemic that baseball has so many different facets to it that go into winning. And the Dodgers have a pretty good lock on how to make all of those different facets work. Probably better than most teams.
And for those of you that were really rooting for the Dodgers to trade for Nolan Arenado, look at Nolan Arenado's numbers and look at Max Muncy's numbers right now. They're almost identical. Max Muncy does have more home runs, thank you to this Yankees series, but they're almost the same. And I get it in terms of defensively, they're not the same. And I know that that's where Max does have some deficiencies is when it comes defensively, but it is very encouraging, again, to see that you're getting productivity out of there.
I can't wait for the day when we, as a more of a majority of fans, stop looking for perfection from these players and just enjoy the product that they put on the field, because none of them want to be making errors. None of them want to not be hitting, just enjoying what they leave out on this field for us instead of ripping them apart constantly.
Well, sometimes ripping them apart works, Amie, because
No.
yes, it does. And I'll give you an example. I was critical of Landon Knack. In the last episode, I said, is this regression with Landon Knack? And
I do not agree with this at all.
Landon Knack clearly listens or watches the show, because since I've made those comments, Landon Knack has had 2 back-to-back quality starts. And I am very encouraged by that. And I will take credit for the fact that I was the one that whipped Landon Knack into shape. He heard what I was saying. And this is what we've seen the last 2 starts is the Landon Knack that we saw last year. And when you have a starting rotation that is decimated by injury, this is huge if Landon Knack can keep this up.
Aside from the joking, which I understand where you're coming from.
There's no joke. There's no joke. We only speak the truth here. We speak the truth. That was a truth bomb.
That was not a truth bomb. That was absolutely a joke. But I don't agree with that. I don't agree, joke aside, because that stuff, I feel like that is damaging in our sport. It is a slippery slope from different kinds of comments we see where people are just horrible to these players. And we're seeing more and more. We've already covered some of these stories before, but we're seeing some of them still continue to come out. And to me, that stuff is not funny.
Speaking of which, did you see the Lance McCullers update?
Oh, go for it. Tell me about it.
They've identified the fan who made the death threats.
Really?
And it was a fan who was intoxicated and had some gambling debts.
So your point of did they bet on that game that day?
Yeah. I mean,
and that's not
that it makes it exactly.
No, yeah. Whether you were intoxicated or not, gambling or not, sober, we should not be treating these fans this way. I will never understand how people do this to other humans.
It was an overseas better, by the way. Overseas better. So, yeah. Look, in terms of Landon Knack's performance, and I mean, Gonsolin that game could have gotten out of reach, but the fact that Gonsolin at least kept him in the game and the Dodgers offensively were able to come back.
Well, and they quieted out after, yes, they did hit quite a few home runs there, but after that, I don't think they
were all solo home runs, and that was huge. That was huge. Look, I think it's a very obviously winning a series against the Yankees. They're a first place team. It's got to make your team feel well, especially when you're not at full strength. You didn't have Mookie. I mean, the minute that was reported that Mookie had that and he wasn't going to play in the series, you had to sit there as a fan and go, oh, this is even going to be harder for the Dodgers to compete against the Yankees. And they won the series.
Which is what they have continued to do since the season began, because they have still never really been firing on all cylinders. Freddie out, Mookie, Tommy Edman, Teoscar. And we're just talking offensively. Let's not get into the 14 pitchers that are on the IL right now. the fact that they have not been at full strength, and while there are many people that will knock them down, these guys continue to show up and they continue to win. I think it's just a testament to how hard they work.
Now, let's also be fair on both sides here, because the Yankees of New York also have significant injuries, especially when it comes to their pitching staff. We didn't see Garrett Cole. We didn't see Luis Gil. I mean, we saw Max Fried, and to see what the Dodgers did to Max Fried is, to me, really, because Max Fried was having a great season and traditionally has had success against the Dodgers. So for the Dodgers to do that to him is very encouraging. But then again, the Yankees responded and they did it to Yamamoto, right?
Yeah, which is going to happen. And there were some comments yesterday during the broadcast that in that that Monday game, I believe it was against Cleveland, Yamamoto had that unassisted. What am I looking for?
The put out at first base.
Thank you. I'm trying to find my notes here. They're all over the place. But in the third inning against Will Wilson, he ended up taking the ball and he couldn't make it to the base, but he was able to tag out Will Wilson. But then you saw him kind of do this like stutter step. And there's speculation, at least from the Sportsnet commentators, that he might have tweaked his hip a little, which also impacted him in yesterday's game. So if that's the case, never an excuse, but it is a potential reason for him not being able to locate what he was trying to do yesterday.
It is something to keep an eye on, because they did bring it up immediately after that Guardians game about that hip thing.
Oh, did they? That's where I'm going to have lags in all of my.
They brought it up as something to keep an eye on his next start, and so you may be right in that sense. But another thing I think you have to factor in, and that's why I don't think it was his second start of the week. And that's one of the things with the Japanese starters, is this pitching twice a week is not common to them. So was it maybe a combination of both? Maybe was it the hip and then also pitching twice in 1 week? Or was it also he just didn't have it the same way that Max Fried didn't have it on Friday?
Could have been all of it, which you've said before. We get teams at different levels of wherever they're playing. You meet them where they are at the time. And you've said that multiple times. Dave Roberts in the media scrum yesterday had said that, it was an interesting series. And this was even before Sunday's game, because of the expectations on both sides, no team wants to be embarrassed. And so, he mentioned somebody had asked him about Judge's home run because the cameras had panned to him. I think it was Saturday. And they were like, you were shaking your head. And he was like, yeah, I was in disbelief. He's like, no shade to our side. He's like, but I like watching great players. And that was he's like, Judge, he's an incredible player. And so even just to catch some of those moments where we all have that wonder about baseball, and Dave Roberts isn't excluded from that, being able to appreciate, like you said, what the Yankees bring, because they're not a slouch of a team.
I feel it's a baseball rule, and there may be exceptions to the rule, but after the Dodgers scored 18 runs on Saturday, I was fully convinced that they were going to lose on Sunday, because it just seems like it happens too many times where a team scores that many runs, and then the next day, that's why you hear that expression, right? Hey, save some runs for tomorrow, guys. Save some runs for tomorrow. So I had told my compadre, I said the Yankees are winning tomorrow. Once it got up to once it got up to 14, I was just like, that's it. The Dodgers are getting shut out tomorrow. I mean, it's just one of those crazy rules in baseball.
It's a motivator
where you go nuts like that. So
well, and Rushing got his first career home run. He hit a 3-run home run. He's the one who made the score 18.
We're going to ignore the fact that it was off of a position.
Well,
right?
I was actually just going to say, I was listening to commentary about, like, do you care if it's off a position player or not? And the broadcast that I was listening to was like, no, you don't care, because it's a home run. Like, you celebrate it to celebrate it. You can be upset about it all you want, but the fact is he hit a home run. And and they were saying too, it's people assume it's easier to do it off of a position player, but there's also there's a level of toughness there as well to factor in.
Well, it seemed like your boy only needed seven pitches to get out of that ninth inning. So
he still has a 0 ERA.
So again, I look, it's all very encouraging. Now,
Did you hear Dave Roberts said that him and Miggy Rowe are the ones fighting for those extra innings? So it's not like just that Kike is the de facto pitcher now. Miguel Rojas wants to pitch too, and in this case, the helmet went out. So
there you go. Look, it'll be interesting. Drink. It'll be interesting to see going into if they can carry it over into the next series because the Metropolitans are coming in hot, and all of a sudden you got like a four-way tie in the National League for the best record between the Metropolitans, the Phillies, the Cachorros, and the Dodgers. And the Metropolitans took 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers. So it'll be interesting to see what the Dodgers do in this upcoming series.
yeah,
Anything
and
else?
we have Dustin May pitching tonight, which is Monday. We'll see Kershaw pitching on Tuesday's game. Tony Gonsolin should be the starter on Wednesday, and then we should be seeing Landon Knack again on Thursday.
It's a 4-game set against the Metropolitans?
Yeah, it's like a 1:00 game on Thursday, I believe.
Oh, wow. That's going to be really, really interesting.
They don't, from what I read, they don't have a day off until like the following, like
Yeah,
Thursday. So they're in a long stretch right now. So for everybody who's already going to get their knickers in a twist, their chonies in a wad, like they're going to be tired. They are traveling. They are baseball players. They are professionals, yes, but they are also humans. So don't be looking for a perfect like stretch right now as far as like winning every single game. There are going to be some losses. There were a couple people I think I saw on social media posting like, I can't believe the Dodgers dropped that game on Sunday, and it's like they won the series. Like let's settle down.
Well, you could have said the same thing about the Guardians series. They could have swept that series.
But it's baseball. You're literally not going to win every game. Like this is what I don't understand. Like why people are looking for perfection. You're not going to win every game. So just enjoy it. Find the plays that are amazing while they're happening. Cause there were a lot of things that happened in the, like Shohei got, he was the first to 20 in the MLB as far as home runs. Like there were a lot of really cool things that happened over these last couple series. And yeah, they're going to drop some games, but look for the positive in them.
That being said, because you are La Reina de Positivity, are you concerned with Tanner Scott?
Man, I knew this was coming. I mean, to me, it's baseball. Like I can't, we heard so much about the Yankees, like Evan Williams, he was supposed to be the closer and he got that job taken away from him. And I feel like this is baseball. This is the nature of the beast. If he is not performing where he wants to be right now, they're going to take that into consideration and they're going to put him into hopefully positions where he can thrive. We saw him, he came in for only one hitter, I think. God, I'm already like blanking out. Was it Sunday's game or Saturday's game?
Friday's game.
Yeah, they're all I was having to catch up on games, so I watched them all kind of concurrently as I got dressed in the morning. It's not great. He's even come out and said like this is not how he wants to be playing. Hopefully he finds it. But there were some people that I heard on different broadcasts saying this is his first time around with the Dodgers. It's still getting used to all of the stuff within this organization. I think sometimes we forget these players can move around a lot and there is still going to be some adjustment, just like there is for the Japanese players coming over here, coming and playing for a new team, getting used to new training regimens and stuff like that. We don't know how much that plays into it too. So hopefully he finds it. As far as am I worried? I think this is where my different perspective on the game, I'm not going to be worried about him. I'm just going to be rooting him on to do the best that, I hope he does his best. I hope he finds it. I hope that the trainers are, able to isolate something, maybe change something in his delivery. And, he's not going to leave stuff hanging or, I think they said that he was throwing a lot more fastballs than he usually does. Well, hopefully they can find a way to use those strategically.
And I take this from what Hershiser and from Rick Monday. People who know more baseball than I do. The thing that concerns me is both Hershiser and Rick Monday have said at one point or another, and especially when we discussed this earlier in the season about how there's a different strike zone now being called, he's got to figure out a way to get players out while pitching in the zone. He can't
Right.
just constantly pitch out of the zone. And what both Hershiser and Rick Monday have said is his stuff when it's in the zone is not playing. And that is what's concerning because both Hershiser and Rick Monday said at one point or another, you have to go inside the zone to get these players out. And if your
Mhm.
stuff is not playing in the zone, that's what's concerning. And that's what the Dodgers are going to need to figure out is why is his stuff not playing when it's in the zone?
And I think that's where it's the difference of, okay, we have that information, cool, but there's nothing we can do about that. All that we can do is hope that him and the Dodgers figure it out.
Look,
And
Tanner,
for all the people who get frustrated, like, why is he even pitch? Like, take him out of the game. Like, okay, then what? Like, I just
Tanner,
don't stress yourselves out.
Tanner, I know you're watching. I know you're listening to the show. Just keep listening, and eventually I will fix you the same
No,
way I
no,
fixed Landon
no.
Pack.
This is
You know,
no,
this
no.
is this is what
Absolutely not.
happens. This is
Absolutely not.
this is what do you call
No,
it? Baseball Shangri-La karma. You know,
no,
it's it rubs off, and watch if Tanner Scott starts pitching well, I make sure you give me credit. That's all I'm saying.
no,
Yeah.
no.
I can fix them. Anything else you want to say about the Yankee series?
I don't think so. I think so just as a side note, Anthony Bonda did change his song yesterday. So for anybody who was in the stadium when he came out yesterday, he came out to Selena's Bitty Bitty Bom Bom, which I, as a Selena lover, was ecstatic about.
Do
So
the washing machine.
I know, right?
Do the washing machine.
So
I do want to. So one last thing before we leave this Doyer Yankees series. I don't know if some of you saw this story, but the piece of concrete that broke off at Dodger Stadium and hit the Yankee fan, there's a picture going out there, and I don't know if you've seen it, Amy. It is a considerable chunk of
mhm.
concrete that guy was holding. And I'm hoping it hit him in the back and not in the head. I'm not clear as to where it hit him. Amy, I am completely baffled as to how this happened. If you look at that piece that broke off, in my mind, and I am not a concrete expert, I don't know how it breaks off like that. It seemed like someone had to have chipped at it in order for it to break off like that. I find this story really crazy that and of course everybody started coming out, oh well, they got to redo the stadium, just build a new stadium and all that stuff.
Oh my
I
gosh. I'm
think it
glad
is
I didn't see any of that stuff.
I think it is just insane how that thing broke off. And again, I'm just glad it did not hit him in the head because that may have done some serious damage to this guy.
I mean, I'm looking at the shot of it right now. I don't know that they necessarily chipped it, but you can see cracks in that concrete. We live in California. We live near fault lines. So like while they're going to make every effort to retrofit the stadium, at some point, erosion, things like that happen. It's a loud stadium. There are people, I don't know if you've ever sat in reserve. I know you tend to go to Loge, but if you're
I'm
under
a
an overhang,
loser. I'm a loser. Yo no me
yes,
junto con la chusma. No me junto con la chusma.
but people will like stomp their feet, bang on stuff from the levels above. So I mean, it's just a matter of time. And so at least now that they're aware of it, they can, maybe take some precautions of like, okay, let's go check out some of the other areas of the stadium and just make sure, we can prevent whatever we can prevent.
Am I Max Hendrewing?
You are a little bit, yes. Okay. While you're doing that, we do have kind of a mention that I forgot to bring up. So Haesung Kim had a pretty good game on Saturday as well. I think he had four plus hits. So I think he hit 5 times, 5 for 5. He had a home run, an unassisted double play, and an outfield assist. And according to OptaStats, he is the only MLB player in the modern era to do that in one game. So just more argument for him to get additional playing time. So we may see him continue to be trotted out on the field more than was previously thought. Oh, you're returning to us. It's like you've come out of like a Technicolor Wizard of Oz instead of Max Headroom land.
All right. So is that all you got on the series?
Yes, that was the last of my notes that I saw.
Okay. So I want to segue into something that I am so proud that I get to say, and that is that my co host spoke at the Hall of Fame as a part of a symposium. I can't speak English right now. Um, So that is the reason why we didn't drop a show last week, ladies and gentlemen, because Amie was in New York at the Hall of Fame. So I'm setting this all up. The floor is yours. Tell us everything about this experience. I am so proud of you that you had this opportunity and that you took advantage of it. Madam, how was your Hall of Fame trip? How was it being in the Hall of Fame?
Oh my God, it was amazing. If you've never been before or you get the opportunity to go, not just to the Cooperstown Symposium, because it was just a bunch of us nerds there, like nerding out about baseball, and you know me, I love that deeper dive. But just the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown itself, what an amazing little town. Like in my head, I had it like, oh yeah, there's probably the Hall of Fame, and you have like a block of like stuff surrounding it. It is a whole little town. I had no idea. Lots of little like souvenir shops, cool little restaurants. That the Cooperstown distillery was amazing. It was just, it was such a blissful week, and I hate traveling. I love being here. I love going to Dodger Stadium, but being in Cooperstown was awesome, and that's before even setting foot into the Hall of Fame. Um, Getting to see the plaque room where all of the plaques are, people are ensconced in there. It is like, it is literally, when we talk about the Church of Baseball, it is like walking into a chapel. It is, there is a sacred feel to it. And it's just, it's quiet, and you cannot help but feel reverence. And we actually got to have dinner there Thursday night. So all of the attendees, there were about 140, 150 people who attended the conference or the symposium. And so we all just got to have dinner in that plaque room, in and around all of the plaques, and it was amazing. Have you been before?
I have not been. I always said that my first trip to the Hall of Fame would be when a Dodger goes into the Hall of Fame. So it looks like it's when Kershaw goes in, and there's going to be like 5 million people there. So maybe it'd probably be better if I go when it's not a Hall of Fame weekend. But can you tell us more about when you actually were on stage and you were speaking? Like, what was your talk about?
Yeah, so I was presenting, it's a, I'm trying to find the information here because I have so many notes all over the place about this. But it was a panel called Skirting the Diamond, and it was established by Jean Ardell, who was a proponent of this in the past, and unfortunately she passed away a couple years ago. So it had been on hiatus for a couple of years, and last year they brought it back. So this would be the second year since her passing that they did something like this. And the whole point is to get more exposure to women in baseball. So whether you are on or off the field, I got to present, or not present, but be on the panel with an amazing person. So Meggie Meidlinger she's on the United States Women's National Baseball team. Got to hear her story. She came up, you know, playing Little League and then progressing, and just hearing some of the stuff. Like, there is a direct pipeline for little boys all the way up through, you know, high school and college to get into the MLB, but there's not really one for girls who don't just want to play softball. They want to play baseball. So getting to hear her story, and then also how that translates, where the misconception is that women are just looking to have another woman, like a woman, come into the MLB. We just need to get one player in there. And that's actually not the purpose. When we're talking about women in baseball, we're talking about potentially just having a league of our own, having a space, being welcome at games, being in media, like on my side. And so it's just being able to exist. So she had her perspective, and she also does work in Uganda, teaching young girls how to play baseball, and starting that up. And then you have the other end of the spectrum, where I'm not necessarily on the field, but I'm on the media side. So we have this podcast, and how we're bringing exposure, not just to baseball in different perspectives and lenses, but you and I are both of Latino descent, and I happen to be a woman. So how do we bring our different lens to this game? How do we talk about baseball? How do we even just have our different perspectives? And then my work in the media coming up through, you know, writing for a blog, but then also now, you know, leaning more towards the reporting side, getting to be on the field, in the clubhouse, in the press box. And why being there matters. What are our baseball stories? Why, how does baseball impact us? And what do we then bring to the diamond? So just a lot of stuff like that, but also knowing where we came from, the people whose shoulders we stood on, and then being able to go forward and make a space for, you know, young girls, women coming up who we need to have more women in these spaces. Women have always been a part of baseball. We've always been here. And it's just reinforcing that, because sometimes it feels like people think this is just a men's sport, and it's not. It's a sport for everybody.
And what about that game that you played?
Oh my gosh. So we did kind of a throwback to history of how baseball originated. And so town ball is a game that you play with stakes in the ground. And oh my gosh. They had bats, but they also had sticks. They had like a leather ball, so not like our traditional ball. And the whole purpose of the game, like, you can hit the ball. If you foul it, the ball is still in play. You could also hit it behind you. So you could also have more than the catcher. You could have defenders behind you, but you have to run to the stake. And as you're running, let's say you get to the first stake or first base. If I'm up to bat, you could decide to run into the field. And if they don't throw you out, you become part of the outfield until you decide to run in. But your run doesn't count until you touch all 4 of the stakes and home plate. So at one point we had a gal who ran out into the field. She became part of the outfield until they wanted to try to track her down. And the way that you get an out is to basically plug somebody with the ball. So I fouled my first at bat, did not realize that the rule was to run. So as I took off running as they were yelling at me, the catcher pegged me right in the cheek with the ball. So out. So I took a little bit more care at my next at bat. I had my Oral Hershiser jersey on, and I hit one right into left field. And so it was a fun game. We had an old timey umpire calling the game. I don't know who actually won, but we had a lot of cool people out there. I had met somebody at one of the previous sessions. So Jeff Ward, actually, he's a professor at Oneonta. That's how I ended up even playing. I was just going to take pictures on the side, and yeah, so it was interesting. I like how baseball has evolved. I have to say, I don't like the rules of town ball, but it was fun to play. And say, you know, I'm playing town ball at Cooperstown at the Hall of Fame. So
That sounds amazing. That really sounds like you had a fantastic week. So not only did you get to visit the Hall of Fame, you participated in a panel and you got to play town ball.
and the sessions themselves were amazing. There was one, so there was a presenter named Bill Francis that I think you would have enjoyed his talk. He was talking about baseball and movies and how prior to the 1980s, baseball movies were considered box office poison. And then in the 80s, you had this influx of like Bull Durham, Major League. There were 5 that he named in his presentation. But it was just like getting to see like little clips of that. And then he called like directors and producers after the fact to like, okay, what was your perspective? Why did you decide to do this, especially with it being box office poison? So it wasn't just research and analytics and statistics. There was a lot. People had different sessions based off of, you know, the Negro Leagues, movies. So it was just really interesting to hear all of the different perspectives from everybody that was presenting in the sessions.
I would have loved to have a conversation with him because I would have questioned his theory. Because to me, the greatest baseball movie ever made is from the 70s, not from the 80s. I would have argued with him, and it wasn't box office poison. It was actually one of the highest grossing box office hits of that year, and that is The Bad News Bears. To me, The Bad News Bears is the greatest baseball movie ever made.
He did bring that up, but he was talking about the way that producers and people who were funding the movies looked at it. So it wasn't that he didn't think that wasn't a great movie, or it was, and it should have been included. It was the prevailing viewpoint at that time, regardless of The Bad News Bears, was nobody wanted to make these movies. And so to get a movie made, it was nearly impossible until you had this success in the 1980s with The Natural, Bull Durham, 8 Men Out, Field of Dreams, Major League. And then viewpoints started shifting. And part of kind of what he was asking was, a lot of those people in that time period grew up loving baseball and also loving movies. So almost like you. And so it was like, why would I not want to make a movie about this? And so that's where you saw the prevalence of it instead of just like one here and there. These were men who loved this sport and wanted to see it on film and fought for it. So just
I
really
totally
interesting.
understand. Yeah, I get his point because yes, there are much more successful movies about baseball in the '80s, but for me, it's just the
Oh, we lost you to Max Headroming. I think you were saying that like the Bad News Bears just kind of being like one of those films, and just so that you get your nod, he did bring it up, so it did get mentioned. We were a little bit dismayed. My mentor was there, and she was like, "Well, hey, what about A League of Our Own? Like that didn't get mentioned." But really, the whole point was the box office poison versus the '80s kind of overcoming that. So it was things like that. It was there were conversations on selection bias. Branch Ricky's big mistake in letting Sam Jethro go. There were so many things, innovation and debate. I attended one on tribalism at the plate, celebratory rituals and group mentality in MLB, from conversations just about like in the past, traditionalists don't like to see a lot of celebrations. Like you would hit your home run, you would put your head down and you would run around the bases. And now you have these elaborate celebrations, the props in the dugout, all of the extra base hits and the moves. But one of the things that got brought up in that conversation was you also have, it's less homogenous. So you have people from all over the world that are playing on teams. Language is sometimes a barrier. If you have these celebrations outside of just, the celebrations are fun, but it's a way to connect with fans, but it's a way to connect with teammates. And studies are showing that teams that do these celebrations, they're more successful with their interpersonal, like just how successful they are in the clubhouse and on the field. So it's just interesting to see the research that's going into that, especially as we're seeing things. I saw something before we started recording. Where's my note? George Springer was ruled out after being tagged while jumping on a bag when he was at third base. They reviewed the play and he was called out. The run did get to score. It was in the Athletics versus I think Toronto. And then you see like the UCLA game the other day where everybody's running to home plate and one of the women didn't necessarily touch the plate and it necessitated a 13-minute review of it. And we couldn't review the play that actually, might have canceled out the run, but just where does celebration fall on all of this? So if there's topics that people are interested in, there are people that are researching this. And so things like the symposiums, things like Sabre, there are people out there. You might find somebody who's already researching something that you're interested in. So like I said, baseball nerds.
baseball nerds, ladies and gentlemen. Anything else you want to add about your trip before we wrap things up?
Honestly, there was so much just amazingness to it. I would just say if you can get to the Hall of Fame in general, go. If you can attend something like the symposium and you're interested in topics like that, it is a wonderful place to go and conversate with people, especially because even with our panel, we had people coming up to us afterwards. There was somebody who was like, I don't understand how you could be so positive about baseball. Like I have a hard time, just not knocking down the game. And so it was having that conversation of helping that person flip the script on, okay, I want to look at this game positively, despite, winning records, despite front offices and ownership and, Manfred and things like that. And like, okay, well, it gave him something to think about as far as like, what, I could choose to look at this game differently. Or many of the people who came up to us who didn't realize like, oh, we didn't even realize things about women in sports or how hard that is, or I never thought about that not as a negative, but if you are born into privilege of being a male in this game, you have inherent privilege already where it's not, like I said, it's not a knock. You might just not think about some of these things because you've never had to. And so having more exposure to topics like these gives people food for thought, and we can influence the game to move in a positive direction. And also, as we're trying to grow it and get more young people involved, have those better perspectives.
So what you're saying is that we need to introduce you to Bluesky?
you were eaten by a robot, but were you saying that I need to be introduced to Bill Platchkey? Is that a reference to the article we saw in I think it was the LA Times today?
Yes. Yes. Am I still max headrooming?
You were a little pixelated, but we can hear you now. So, did you have something further you wanted to?
Well, I mean, do you want to get into that Plashke article? Do you want to give a recap for those
Um,
who haven't read it, because he just recently dropped it?
I mean, I don't have all of it to recap. I think you read it a little more recently than me. It is not how I watch baseball. And I think you and I were having this conversation before we started the episode today. Everybody is entitled to their opinion. If this is how that person sees baseball, me and that person will just never agree, because I watched that same game, and while yes, we lost and I'm not happy about it, I can still find the positive things in that game, things that make me enjoy it. And when I read that piece, I was just this is where we just don't agree. And I think but that's I think that's where we all can take something from it. I read it and I realized that not only did I not agree, but that's not how I want to watch baseball, and it reinforces my perspective. But it's not me taking to the comments and knocking down Bill Platchkey, because he's entitled to feel how he wants to feel. I think that's where we can all learn the lesson of maybe like, okay, we disagree and we move on, versus now you have keyboard warriors out there saying negative things or whatever. It's his opinion. He gets to have it.
I will say this about Plashke's article, and in his defense, because he kept referencing Mamba mentality. I just don't think you really want to apply that to a regular season game in June. I think what he is referencing to, that if the Dodgers had a killer instinct, they would have swept the Yankees and sent a message to them: if we see you guys again in the World Series, you guys can't beat us.
But
I think
that's perfection. That's the dream. That's what everybody wants to do. And then there's reality of what you're able to do, I think, is where for me it differs.
I think that's the angle he was going for. I think it's a bit of a stretch, because again, it's a regular season game in June
But
against.
it is the first matchup between people who just like, there was a lot put on this series because it was the first time they were meeting since the World Series, which is going to happen whenever they played, whether it was May, June, or August. I guess for me, I'd like, why just don't put emphasis on it? Like, it's another 3 series game. Like, we could play them and we could have bombed, but that doesn't mean we're not going to bomb in the World Series.
Well, to steal one of your catchphrases, is if the Yankees would have won 2 out of 3, or if they would have swept, who cares, right? Because
Exactly.
it's the regular season.
It's
If
not
the
going to dictate what happens in the postseason.
Yeah, exactly. So I do think, I know Bill is getting some heat for this article. It's not the first time he's gotten heat for these articles. I do think it's a stretch, but I also have to remind everybody, he is a columnist. His job is to write articles. And when there's nothing going on, sometimes you have to get creative and find some sort of article to write. The
But
fact
that
that he
but
is hinting that the Dodgers don't have Mamba mentality, I think that's a stretch. I don't buy it. I mean, this is a team that is a mash unit, and they won 2 out of 3 against the first place team. So
but that's
I
and that's where I think we can not necessarily, like, if you don't agree with the article, which I didn't, it didn't. I'm not pissed off at Bill Platchkey now. Like, I'm like, oh my God, that, like, I don't have any ill feelings one way or another. This particular article, I just didn't agree with, but we don't always see it play out that way on social media or online, where it's, yes, you can disagree, but it's how do we do it, and how can we do it as adults?
so that's just one of those things where you're right. We'll just agree to disagree.
Mhm.
Um, Anything else you want to add to this episode?
No, we're going into another stretch. I'm excited to go see Kershaw tomorrow. Yeah, it should be another good week of baseball.
Are you going to all the games this week?
No, I'll only be at tomorrow's. We're recording tonight, so I had to miss Monday's game. So I will be there on Tuesday.
Okay, very well. Well, I don't have the same level of accomplishments as you do, but I am proud of this accomplishment, Amie, and that is I, for the first time this year, have watched a movie every day this month. So for the month of May, 31 movies in 31 days. This is a combination of going to the movie theater or watching movies at home, but I average one movie a day for the month of May. I am quite proud of myself. So thank you very much.
All right. Well, you get a gold star, and we need to
I
see a
know
movie again together soon.
it's not speaking on a panel in the Hall of Fame, but it is
I
my
mean,
contribution to
I
this.
think we're both doing great things, partner. So I'm proud of us both.
So that's going to do it for this episode. If you've been listening to us on the audio portion of the show, please make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, rate us, write us a review, help spread the word. If you are watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that notification button, give us a thumbs up, leave us your comments of engaging with you, and most importantly, make sure you're following us on social media.
On social media when Juan is not being eaten by a robot. So you can follow us on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, YouTube, and Bluesky at Baseball Shangri-La. So thank you for tuning into our episode. Goodbye, people, and say goodbye to the people, Juan.
Goodbye, people.